NC State family, it's time for an honest look at your sports world. Let's get you hooked up for Pack Therapy, presented by First Horizon Bank. Here are your hosts, Tim Donnelly and Wolfpack football legend Mike Glennon.
Welcome into another edition of Pack Therapy, the podcast. I'm Tim Donnelly, joined by Mike Glennon, NC State legend and also longtime NFL pro, as you know. This is one where Pack Therapy is necessary. The therapy element is necessary. 36-7 loss on the road at Notre Dame this past weekend, and a bye week coming up this upcoming weekend to get things right before Pittsburgh on the road October 25th. Before we get started, please like and subscribe this wherever you're listening to it, as well as go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We just recently on 99.9 The Fans YouTube passed 20,000 subscribers, and we're doing a sweet giveaway. So if you want to be involved in that, you have to go follow us on 99.9 The Fans YouTube. Now talking about the game. At number 16, Notre Dame, 36-7, the final score. Mike, I think the obvious question going into this one, and I'm going to preface this by saying one of my favorite sports takes of all time, it was in one of the first Manning casts where Peyton and Eli were doing the Monday night thing, and they both said the question they were asked most often in their career that they pretended to have an answer to and didn't was, what adjustments did you make at halftime? Because they basically described at halftime, you get a couple orange slices, you use the bathroom, your coach goes, great, we're going to try to get back to that one play, right? We're going to try to get back to that skinny. All right, see you out there. Smacks you on the shoulder pads and you run out. And then after the game, what were the halftime adjustments? And you're like, well, we really wanted to stay committed to the run. We thought about getting so-and-so involved, and it's all just made up. But with that being said, when the score is 10-7 at half and then you get beat 26-0 in the second half, what were the adjustments they made at halftime?
I think Notre Dame followed the same philosophy as Peyton and Eli, and they didn't change anything. They just started finishing drives offensively, and I want to apologize if anyone hammered NC State on this over-under. I was feeling really good at halftime. It was 7-7 with like a minute left. I'm like, man, this is
They're
easy
getting 22
cover.
and a half?
And then, felt it start slipping away. But I think that game was just NC State was outmatched, both on offensively and defensively. From an NC State offensive standpoint, Notre Dame played a ton of man coverage, and it's basically my guy is better than your guy, and that's just the way it was. Receivers got open at times, but not consistently. CJ wasn't as accurate as he's been, and a lot of that is against man coverage. Sometimes, you're not throwing to a window. You got to throw a guy open, and if a guy's not getting open, that becomes more challenging. There were a few times where I didn't think he gave the receivers a chance on some deep balls. You got to at least let him touch it. And CJ was not at his best in this game. And then defensively, just kind of got wore down. Notre Dame's got some players, got some guys that are going to be playing in the NFL. And ultimately, I thought NC State did a good job in the first half, kind of hanging in there, making them fourth down. They held them on a 4th and goal. But ultimately, the talent just was overwhelming in the second half to where NC State couldn't hang in there.
I have some receipts on this. I was doing radio during the game, and I did everything you're not supposed to do during radio, is have the game up in front of me and almost like ignore whatever my co-host is saying because I'm watching the game. But when it was 10-7 at half, we were kind of doing a wraparound, and the co-host asked me like, "Oh, you're doing this show from Raleigh. Is this upset alert time?" And the thing that I did at the time was I brought up the stats and I looked up the rushing stats. And at half, Hollywood Smothers had 8 carries for 25 yards. And from watching the game, I knew that they were hard-earned yards. And I went, if they don't get Smothers going, it's the ticking, metaphorical ticking clock in the corner. Like eventually Notre Dame's gonna pop off, and that's exactly what happened. And we talked about it. I think a lot of it just came down to the trenches, right? Hollywood Smothers was at times looking like Hollywood Smothers. I wouldn't say it's his best game, but he was still, making a guy miss to gain 2 and save a loss. And just without that running game, I think it put too much on the defense's shoulders. It asked too much of C.J. Bailey in the passing game. That's got to be Hollywood, Smothers, and or Duke Scott, whoever. The running game has to be the engine that drives.
Yes, when NC State's been at its best, it's been a balanced attack. I actually think the offensive line did okay. Like it wasn't like they were getting blown backwards like we've seen against Virginia Tech, on like ECU. They were doing all right. I think just what hurt them is they weren't getting positive plays in the passing game to kind of it felt like it was like run for like 2 yards, incompletion, 3rd and 8.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to just get the offense going. And we've seen them in the other games where maybe the running game struggled a little. The passing game was moving the ball where NC State just couldn't sustain drives in this one. And I don't know. I think I saw they had 12. NC State had 12 first downs to Notre Dame's 24. It's hard to win that way. And
that's that wear down I'm talking about. Like if you can, have a good drive and it be 10-7, but if you're getting kind of that kind of outproduced and out just driven, eventually that's going to catch up.
It was just, to me.
By the way, you were right on the nose. It was 24-12.
It was not a ton of negative rushing yards. It was more only 2 to 3 yards a carry, and then the passing game couldn't just get them into another first down or a 2nd and 3. Like it was just constantly playing behind the sticks. And playing behind the sticks is a recipe for not having a successful game.
To stay with the offense, and I'll raise my hand on this if I and or we contributed to it. Did we age CJ Bailey too quickly, where he was playing so veteran-like early in the game that we just went, all right, let's treat him like a 27-year-old NFL pro, and then in a game like this, and in a couple over the last 2 or 3. He's whatever he is, 19 years old, and he is young, and he needs to learn some lessons, maybe the hard way.
Maybe. I felt worse, or I should say it this way. I felt better after watching the film than I did leaving the game.
That's good news.
Watching it on TV, I thought he really struggled. I thought the interceptions were bad. The first interception, again, man coverage, receivers running like a deep curl route. Inside leverage, which is tough on the receiver, but the receiver kind of just gave up on it. Like it looked like CJ threw it right to Notre Dame. He kind of tried to put it in a place where his receiver could get it, and the receiver kind of stopped. So could he have found somewhere else to go? No one else was open, but it's like you want that ball low and away, my guy, no guy. Not saying CJ's completely not to blame for it, but I actually put that more on the receiver. The game was out of hand at this point, but it seems like CJ has a play or two more often than he should, where he throws it right to the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one interception, the game was over, so this is not why they lost. But it was like, what were you looking at? It happened in the ECU game. I think that one the ref was in the way, but I remember it happened last year a couple times. And he just has a few of these moments where it's like, what? But was that?
It is exactly what you said. I think the ref was in the way. As quarterbacks, former quarterbacks, we are so forgiving of There's like you said, it's right to the defense, but I immediately go to I want to see the end zone. Who was that? I want to meaning the end zone film. I want to see who was that guy standing behind. Because there's you don't do that.
Right.
But
I was hoping that was the case on this one. This one, there was no excuse. It was just a bad play. Then he throws
Calais
one.
Campbell in the middle and be like, oh, he was just behind Calais. Nobody saw him. He's 6'7", 300 pounds, and it wasn't that case.
And then the other interception, throwing the ball away. It was again like what we talked about. Don't make a bad play worse. Just throw the ball out of bounds. Like that ball and that thing into the bleachers. Let a fan catch it. So those two plays. So back to your original question: did we get ahead of ourselves? Maybe a little, just because he was playing so clean and it was so consistent that I think we do have to realize he's still young, and against a good defense, sometimes it happens. We see it in the NFL where some of the best quarterbacks in the world have a bad game. Was this a bad game, or is he kind of showing signs that he just needs to improve in certain areas? I guess we'll find that out the rest of the season. I'm still a big CJ Bailey fan, and to me, this was just a whole passing attack. It wasn't just CJ Bailey. It was about the receivers. They need to get open as well.
And I want to be clear. I'm not questioning the talent. I'm not questioning the ability to process. He doesn't turn 20 till May. Yeah. I'm just questioning whether we, the old soul nature of how he was playing earlier may have been a little, accelerated. And like I said, I'll put my hand up. Maybe I was a part of that both on this show and on my afternoon show. the bye week coming up, from an offensive perspective, kind of what's the to-do list there? Just staying on the offensive side of the ball. This time of year, it could just be get healthy, right? It could just be, you've been in, I call it the submarine. You've been in the submarine for a while. And you just want to come up and get a breath of fresh air. But also with, what your record is and how your schedule is going to be coming out of the bye week, it can't just be watching Notre Dame film and getting your grade and going to the weight room.
I think offensively, no, we'll start with CJ Bailey. I think he needs to go back and they need to kind of go through his bad plays first. Like, let's look, what can we clean up in the second half? And I think it starts with those turnovers. It's those kind of, what was that kind of play? Like, we got to eliminate those. And then I think you go to, like, all the good things. He's done some really good things this year, as have the receivers. I mean, Terrell Anderson's having a great year. Go down the list. Offensively, they're doing some really good things. And obviously, for Hollywood Smothers, there's not much for him personally. It's just to get the run game going. And I think that starts with the offensive line, and then it starts with, staying in situations where they can run the ball. Defensively, maybe you got to do a little bit of a who are we soul searching, like, who are we and where are we going with this? And it's figuring out personnel, scheme, how do we get the best 11 guys on the field, and how do we get the best production out of that situation? So Dave's a smart guy. There's one thing that he does, do really well. He knows football and he knows defensive football. So I think they're going to do some self-reflecting, some self-evaluation, and come back next week and get ready for this game against Pitt.
I'm glad you brought up showing CJ Bailey the good stuff. I said this on my afternoon show earlier this week. My coaches did this for me after a couple rough games and then a bye week, where they almost like bait and switched me, and I kind of want this. I've suggested this for quarterbacks a million times since my career ended, where the head coach called me and said, "Hey, when are you going to be in the facility today? This is a bye week off day." And I was like, "Oh, geez." And he's like, hey, "Make some time. Come down to my office. I want to talk to you." I was like, "Not going to my 8 a.m. today. I'll be there at 8:15." Like, what the heck is? And I went in there, and he did like the, "Hey, how you doing? How you feeling? Like, how's your shoulder?" And then he went, "All right, watch this." And he fired up a highlight film of my plays, and he was like, "He's like, that's pretty good, right? Like, you're that guy. Be that guy," because he thought I'd lost my confidence, and I was better coming out of the bye week. And I think, I say it all the time. Quarterback is a confidence position. It only takes a hint of wavered confidence to, turn on-time throw into a deflection, into who knows what happens. And I think CJ Bailey has a million times more reasons than I ever had to be super confident in his ability and what he can do. So, I'm calling up a GA. I'm saying fire up, like find out his favorite song, put it in the background. Like what AI special effects can you throw on? I want, when he lets it go, like lightning coming out of his hand. Like I want to hype him up because I want him playing more like he was prior to, some of these turnovers that could shake your confidence.
Yeah, it's like, it wouldn't be hard for that GA to find some good clips.
No, not at all.
We were just talking last week about how high in the country he was in yards and all these stats. Yep. Looking at it now, he's still number 5 in the country in passing yards. He's still completing 72% of his passes.
It's insane.
Now, his number is creeping up on the interceptions, and that's one thing, that would be a point of emphasis for me. But he's done a lot of good things this year. And, I think, sometimes those little highlight reels, like I used to like watching film of the other team before the games, but occasionally I go back and watch like some of my good plays too. Like sometimes you need that reminder, like been there, done that, coming off of a bad game. It's like
ripped it.
I need to show myself that, you can do this. You have evidence. It's not like it's you did it in practice. You've done this in the game against some of the best teams in the country.
All right, we're going to take a break here on Pack Therapy. When we come back, we look a little bit more at the defense coming out of that Notre Dame game. Don't go anywhere. Back here on Pack Therapy, talking NC State at Notre Dame. 36 for Notre Dame, 7 for State. It was 10-7 at half, so kind of a tale of two halves. And as I said before that quick hiatus, we're talking defense here. Obviously, if you look at the end stats, they gave up quite a few, right? And CJ Carr got going, and Jeremiah Love, I don't think it was his best game by any stretch, but he's one of the best running backs in the country, and he made his plays. I actually came out kind of looking at the defense going, I don't think it was as bad as maybe those numbers would say. I think they did some good things, and it really was just they were out there a bunch, some long sustained drives, and they wore down.
Yeah, I agree. The first half, I was actually kind of, I would say, pleasantly surprised. Like I thought,
not kind of. I was pleasantly surprised. They held Notre Dame to 10 points.
Yeah, and Jeremiah Love really didn't get going like I thought that he would. I would say what kind of hurt the NC State defense. They did give up some big plays, but their backs were kind of against the wall. Like this wasn't a game where the offense. You kind of talk about complimentary football and make a joke of it. Like all that means is all three phases play well.
But good complimentary football is good football. It just means your team played well.
NC State offense didn't do many favors for this defense. There was a lot of kind of 3-and-outs. They didn't give them great field position all the time. So for me, I was pleasantly surprised in the first half. Second half kind of still left like, this defense just kind of lacks, I don't know if star power's the word, but there's just not enough plays being made. Like it's kind of it is a bend don't break, but it's like, there wasn't many times where it felt like we were applying the pressure. It was like holding on for dear life, hoping that something didn't happen.
I look at, I think it was the first 2 drives, one for each team of the second half, where the score's 10-7, but Notre Dame's getting the ball out of half. And right, coming out of half, it's a strange like social thing, right? Where the offense is yelling at the defense, get it back for us, get it back for us. And they did. They went out there and it was at least one incomplete pass that I can remember, and they stoned Jeremiah Smith for no gain. Jeremiah Love, excuse me. So either way, it was like a 40-second drive. They got the ball back. They gave it to the offense, and right there is I felt like a moment, right? I think all you needed was a field goal, right? If you get a field goal and it's 10-10, then the defense is going back out there hair on fire, and State went 3-and-out maybe just as quick. If another 40-second drive, and Notre Dame had a long touchdown drive to follow, and that right there felt like, like this defense just went from hair on fire to, thinking out loud almost. I hope our offense can be out there for 4 minutes because I'm sucking wind over here. And then the ball got rolling. Yeah, that was kind of the end.
And that, to me, that's what kind of complimentary football is like even though maybe the offense wasn't not putting up points, it's like you got to help the defense out. And in regards to sustaining drives and giving good field position, looking at NC State's offense. This is their possessions. 3 plays, 11 plays, which was the touchdown. 8 plays, 3 plays, 6 plays, 3 plays, 5 plays, 6 plays, 3 plays, 1 play. Like that is a recipe that's setting your defense up for failure. So all in all, do I feel better about the defense than I did a week ago? No. But do I think there was some positive things that they did and that I was actually surprised to see Jeremiah Love not run for over 100 yards and did some good things. So still feel better about NC State's offense than I do NC State's defense. But to give the defense credit, they did show up in that first half pretty well, and offense didn't help them out.
And we were aware of that, right? Because talking bye week stuff, I think it's going to be an interesting bye week for the defense because, to put us in the time machine a little bit, I know it's been a long season already. Preseason, and then I've referenced this a few times on the podcast, I talked with Dave Doran, and I said, what position battles are you looking forward to? And he basically chuckled and said, like, the entire defense, which means new scheme, right? Moving on to a, not earth-shatteringly different, but a different scheme on defense. New players at, like, 8 of the 11 positions. This is kind of their first time to really watch themselves for an extended period of time and figure out, what they need to fix because, when you're playing every week and you're, I say that treadmill doesn't slow down, right? The next game's always coming at you. I think it's an opportunity for the defense to get a lot better.
Yeah, I think that they can go back and, as coach, I think it starts with the coaches. What have we done well? Who do we want to have out there? But I'm looking for a player to step up. When you watch this defense, I'm not expecting anyone to be Peyton Wilson, but you need someone to, when you watch the defense, be like, that guy's making – who's that guy that keeps making plays? In the beginning of the year, I felt like there were some guys on the defensive line that were showing up, and Aiden Cohen and Sebastian Harsh hasn't felt that way as of late. And really, it's in the secondary. Like, no one's flashed yet. And there needs to be some guys with either some PBUs or some interceptions that just give some energy and some juice to this defense.
You stumbled onto one of my forever battles with how to tell a point, which is I understand completely what you're saying, right? You need the guy that's making plays, but the only way you can communicate that point is to use the most ridiculously talented defensive players.
Yeah.
The way I've described it, and Peyton Wilson is a great example, but I think it was either Brady or Manning always had on their wristband find 20 when they were playing the Ravens, because that's Ed Reed, and you just had to know where he was. Obviously, you're not expecting anyone to be Ed Reed, but you need somebody that the quarterback has to know where he is, or has to be aware. Oh, he could blitz, or he could drop, or he could freelance, or he could you need that. I'm having the same problem talking about the Panthers on my show, because the Panthers they don't get their hands on the ball. One stat that I've stumbled upon, and I'm everybody makes up their own stats now, but I just brought it up. It's called havoc. And defensive havoc percentage is just the percentage of plays a defense gets either a pressure, a tackle for a loss, a forced fumble, an interception, or a pass breakup. And I think that's a really good way to measure in modern football, like if your defense is being super effective, because it's really tough with all the rules that are skewed towards the offense to expect your defense to go 12 sound plays, right? Or to, expect to go, we're going to stop them on first down, second down, third down, and now even more often, fourth down from getting 10 yards, when everything's skewed that way. And it's darn near impossible if you don't get one of those plays, right? You don't get a tackle for a loss, or you're aided by a penalty, but you can't depend on that. So I think that's state, right? You can play 9 pretty sound plays consecutively, and it just looks like a long touchdown drive. And that's kind of a disheartening way to think about defense, and that's why I'm not envious of defensive coordinators in football right now, because the offense is getting so much stuff skewed their way. We'll take a quick break. I have a few kind of more bi-weeky questions for Mike, some things that apply to the game, but maybe apply to the bigger picture as well. It's coming up next right here on Pack Therapy. Back here on Pack Therapy, Tim Donnelly, Mike Glennon. It is a bye week for state, obviously after the Notre Dame game. Pitt, not for a couple of weeks, 10 days from when we're recording this. There's some things that are happening around college football that I think will trickle down or will impact state. First of all, James Franklin was fired. James Franklin 3 weeks ago had a touchdown lead on another contender. He was the third-ranked team in the country, and they had national championship hopes. Last year, they won 13 games, and he was 3 points away from playing in the national championship game. Each of the last 3 games, he's won double figures, and he was fired, and not only fired, he was fired with what could end up costing Penn State about a $50 million buyout. Now, we've learned offset language, and I think it's duty to mitigate language, which means he has to actively be seeking coaching and media jobs, and whatever he makes will come out of that.
Can they just sign him to a 5-year, $5 million contract, and they're still on the hook for $45 million?
Yeah, I think there are loopholes, and also I think him technically looking for a job could be documenting, looking in the newspaper classified ads and going no head coaching jobs. But either way, I think every time this happens, first of all, credit to agents. Good on you for getting your client a ridiculous amount of money to go away. But every time I see this, I think this is kind of the way you can delineate between the schools that are all in kind of astronomically on football and the ones that aren't. If a $20 million, $30 million, $15, $12 million buyout holds you back from doing what you think is best for your program, and then you see Penn State or you see Texas A&M or you see some of these schools paying $50+ million to do what they think is best for their program, I think that's a pretty good option or pretty good way to show you guys are playing different sports.
Yeah, I think it shows they're playing a different game than most teams in the country. But kind of my first thought to Penn State was rather than spending $50 million on a coach that's not going to be there anymore, why don't you put that money towards the players? Like, clearly James Franklin hasn't gotten them. At Penn State, they expect national championships, and he hasn't gotten them to that point.
Yep.
Would an extra $10 million a year of player salary help them get over that hump more than a new coach? I kind of think that's the case. But it's just where college football's at, and we saw Texas A&M do it with Jimbo Fisher.
And it's working with Mike Elko.
It is working. Yeah, it's working, but I don't know. I just can't almost wrap my head around. I appreciate all you guys listeners. I love NC State. I can't imagine being the donor booster that's going to write tens of millions of dollars check to get them out of this. Like, it is just wild to think about. But it is kind of this. It shows you which teams are really serious, and in reality, there's probably 10 to 15 of them.
I think the thing is, the reason I bring it up is kind of ricocheting or ripple affecting to State is whether you think they should move on from Dave Doran or not. The second thing brought up in that conversation every time it's had is, well, what's his buyout? And if you want to win ACC championships, if you want to play into the Final Four of the CFP, I think you kind of got to act as if it doesn't matter what the buyout is, which is I think it's a good way to set expectations. Like, if you don't know your program can come up with $25 million to fire a coach in order to get the right guy in place, according to the powers that be, like their thought process, I think you got to be then maybe you should be happy with 8-9 wins every 3 or 4 years.
And I think that's probably the fair argument of all this, is the money kind of trumps all. But I will say the difference between probably NC State and Penn State. Penn State is wanting to win national championships. Mm-hmm. I don't think NC State has that expectations. They want to be competing for ACC championships, competing for a spot in the college football playoff. So the expectations are a little bit different.
Top 11, not top 1.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. Top 15, I would probably. Yeah, but to your point, and I think that's a fair argument that if you gave Dave Doran a lot more resources, he would probably be more of a contender than he's been in the
very
past.
much so. Very much so. And I think you're going to see some of those deep pockets be interested in James Franklin.
But do they? They might not even have to be, because if the buyout, you probably don't even have to put as much money into him.
We could have he's getting $8 million a year from Penn State. If he's willing to coach for $8 million, then he could accept
right,
whatever the minimum is, $50,000, and coach somewhere else and just make $8 million. But Belichick's making 10. You know what I mean? If he wants to be among the highest paid coaches in college football, then the buyout will essentially be wiped out for Penn State. Also, I think he can go into media. If he starts a podcast, he'll be A-OK.
Yeah.
He'll do just fine. Another kind of off the wall question. I don't know if you saw this. Mel Kiper put out his initial rankings for next year's NFL draft, and I'm immediately looking for local guys, immediately looking for state guys. So I go to tight ends, and Jolie's not there, and I was like, wow, brutal. Keep scrolling. They have him listed as an H-back/fullback.
Huh.
Now they also had Brian Parker from Duke listed as a tackle, and it's pretty well known in the NFL. He's going to be bumping inside to center, probably, maybe guard. So maybe they're, it's not the most well-researched list out there. But am I crazy for looking at Jolie and thinking that's the new version of what a tight end is, and you don't have to call him the move H-back or whatever we were calling him a while ago?
Yeah, I mean, he is built thick. He's
a big guy. That was one of my biggest surprises of seeing them out of pads at ACC kickoff was he's a big dude.
I just don't like that H-back label.
I agree.
That's how many of those are in the NFL? There's next to none.
But also there's obviously what they're implying is he's going to have to move into the backfield occasionally and go lead block. But tight ends do that. It's I don't know. I think he's one of the best tight ends in the country.
Will be an NFL player. Do I think he'll turn into a premier NFL tight end? I don't know about that, but I would be surprised. I think he'll do well in the combine, the testing, and all that, and he'll still end up an NFL roster. I don't know what round we're talking.
I don't want guys mislabeled, because then it's whatever you are first kind of sticks with you.
Yeah.
Right? When you're drafted and it pops up on screen, fullback, That's a stigma you don't want with you for your entire career.
100%. Now, I will say Mel Kiper was the same guy that wanted Shedeur Sanders drafted at 2.
I think he wanted teams like giving up 3 first-round picks to trade for Shedeur.
He ended up going, obviously way later than that. So I don't know if
he's
Mel
dying on
Kiper's
that hill, by the way.
ratings.
He's planting flags, still building property on that island. Last one for you, and it's a bye week conversation. Will Wade and Darian Williams. Darian Williams was picked as we're talking basketball now, NC State. Darian Williams was picked as ACC preseason player of the year yesterday. Will Wade has that group buzzing. As a former football player, like just jacked up for the basketball team?
I'm jacked up now. If I was a current player, I would be annoyed.
Okay.
I mean, I remember times in my football career at NC State where we kind of get off to a start similar to what the football team is right now. I don't know, you're 4-3, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like you feel like the fan base is already looking forward to basketball season. And it's like, look, we're like halfway through our season. Like, stick with us all the way through. A lot can happen the second half of the season. Now, as a fan, I kind of get it. There's a lot of hype that Will Wade's brought. And anytime you have a preseason player of the year, when's the last time NC State's had that?
Are you ready for this? This was you just led me like right into it. I believe it was when you were playing, and it was C.J. Leslie.
Really?
C.J.
Leslie was preseason player.
Preseason ACC player of the year. Huh. So you've dealt with like I was going to basically ask you how does it feel to be on the team, and then you answered it anyway because it's you got one of those guys. Darian Williams was all Big 12 at Texas Tech and hit the transfer portal and chose State, and everybody's really excited about it. Last question, and then we'll wrap up this pod. Did you see his comments about UNC?
Who?
Darian Williams?
No.
Okay, so one of his teammates at Texas Tech was a transfer from UNC, I believe, and Van Allen Lubin, who's one of his teammates now at NC State, transferred directly from UNC. And they asked him about the rivalry, and he was like, the rivalry, blah, 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 said the right things. And he goes, but I don't like that coach over there. He did so-and-so wrong. He did so-and-so wrong. I just don't like him. And said it with his chest. Like I don't like the can you be that into the rivalry like kind of that quickly? He's been on State's campus for half a year.
He's not into the rivalry. It's something personal against the coach. It's a little bit learned. You learn pretty quickly, though, when you step on campus what it means. I mean, I've said it before. Coming from Virginia, I didn't know what it was quite like, but you quickly realize when you get on campus how much it means to the fans. And a coach embrace. I'm sure Will Wade's embraced it. You see Dave Doran embraces it. You embrace the UNC rivalry, you beat them, and you win enough games, the fans will always be happy. So I think the players quickly find that out when they come on campus.
And he doesn't have to go to the Dean Dome this year. State only plays UNC once, and it's at home. So he doesn't. They don't have to go to Cameron or the Dean Dome. So they can talk all the trash and rivalry, knowing it's
one of the downfalls of the expanded ACC.
Oh yeah, it's rough. Either way. We'll be back next week for a bye-week edition. We'll have more fun stuff like we did at the end there, and obviously talk State football here on Pack Therapy. We'll see you next week.